All right, y'all. We are coming off of the heels of Kai Kara France, Amir Albazi, UFC Fight Night 74, I believe this was, and a lot of controversy. And I want to get into the card, and I think it's just right that you start right at the top, talking about the main event and the scorecards, the final result of it. How did I have it? Personally, I had rounds 1, 4, and 5 going to Kai Kara France. Now, this is the thing. I'm not ready to call robbery. I'm not one that's going to sit here and say, oh, it was a robbery. Kai Kara France, that was easy. That was an easy decision to score on his behalf. It should have been him. Amir Albazi, no way in the world you could give him that fight. That's not what I'm saying here. It was a very close fight. And to be honest, I had it scored if I was a judge where I have to score it. But if you just ask me, like, who do you legitimately think just won the fight? Not scoring it, just from your eyes, who do you think won? I don't know if I have an answer. My answer probably is I don't know. I really have no clue. That's how close of a fight it was. I think Kai has a little bit of a bigger fan base. He has guys like Izzy, obviously, it's going to back him. And Izzy was very critical of the judging and just very sour about the situation, which obviously that's his guy, that's his boy. You would assume that Israel Adesanya, Volkanovski, that whole camp is going to feel some type of way. They felt like Kai Kara should have won the fight. He didn't win the fight. It didn't go his way, so people are going to be upset. And again, like I said, the bigger fan base, whenever a guy who has the bigger fan base loses in a very close decision, loses a fight that a lot of people thought maybe he actually won, you're going to get this whole robbery. It was a robbery. I don't know if it was a robbery. I felt like this fight was very close. But this is where the issue lies for me. Just because I disagree with the final decision in terms of who won the fight, again, I'm not sure enough about who won that fight for me to have an issue with the result of it. But it doesn't mean that I still don't have an issue with how this fight was scored, because myself and plenty of others, the biggest issue here is the fourth round and Chris Lee. The issue lies with him. He has an issue on this because the crazy thing is when you look at Sal D'Amato, the three judges in this fight, Sal D'Amato, Mike Bell, and Chris Lee. And when you look at Sal D'Amato and Mike Bell, they had it scored differently. Meaning, Sal D'Amato had the fight going to Albazi, Mike Bell had the fight going to Kai Kara France. They picked different winners. Their end results, the person they picked to win the fight, were opposite, yet I have no issue with either scoring card. Mike Bell gave 1, 4, and 5 to Kai Kara France. I side with Mike Bell. I thought that he had 1, 4, and 5 as well. Round 1 was very close to me for me. Sal D'Amato had 1, 2, 3 going to Albazi, rounds 4 and 5 going to Kai Kara, meaning Kai Kara started putting it on late. Wasn't quite enough to win the fight because he gave the first 3 rounds. So when you look at those two guys, you look at their scorecards, round 1 was the deciding factor. Whoever you felt like won the first round is who you felt won the fight. And through Twitter and through everybody that wants to be judges, all these Twitter judges and everything, it seemed to be that way, that whoever you thought won the first round is who you thought won the fight. We're all in agreement. So even if you have different winners, if you say Albazi won the first round, if somebody else says Kai Kara won the first round, that's okay. There's no issue with that because that first round was so razor close, and we are all in agreement that that's the deciding round. So when Chris Lee comes in and you see his scorecards, well, he gave round 1 to Kai Kara France, and you go, oh, there's the deciding factor. That was a swing round. If you gave round 1 to Kai Kara France, Chris Lee, I'm assuming you gave the fight to Kai Kara France. But no, he actually gave Albazi the round because he gave the 4th round to Amir Albazi, and that's where the issue lies. The 4th round was one of the easier rounds to score. Round 3, you could have very easily given that to Albazi. Round 3 was pretty clear cut for Albazi. The 4th round, however, was also pretty clearly Kai Kara France's. I don't want to say the clearest round. I think round 3 and round 5 were probably the 2 easiest rounds to score. Round 5 going to Kai, round 3 going to Amir. Those 2 rounds were very, very easy to score. But round 4 was not the difficult one. Like, round 4 was, if that's the deciding round. And the issue, again, is just because Chris Lee, hey, you have 2 judges here that are both seeing it in different ways in terms of the final result, in terms of the victor of this fight. You're not in agreement with either one of them. Mike Bell and Sal D'Amato are in complete agreement with how the fight looked. The only thing that they disagree with was that razor close first round, and that's fair. What it tells me is Mike Bell and Sal D'Amato were watching the same fight. They were watching the same fight and scoring it with the same criteria. They just happened to disagree on one round, the first round, which was very close. Chris Lee was watching a different fight or using a different criteria to score the fight. This is a pattern. This is a pattern now with Chris Lee, and you have to start observing patterns. Is Chris Lee, should you just completely wipe him out and say this guy should never judge again, blah, 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 based off of one fight? No, but you start looking back at patterns. When you start digging in, you start looking back at patterns, you see a lot of questionable scorecards from Chris Lee, which isn't, that's not an anomaly. Every judge has some very questionable scorecards. It's tough to judge fights. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, every judge sucks and the whole problem is just judging in general all are terrible. That's not quite true. But in Chris Lee's case, you want to check patterns. Chris Lee's his latest type of fight that caused a lot of controversy, his last scorecards was a Paddy Pimblett. He had Paddy Pimblett winning the fight over Jared Gordon. That one obviously drew a lot of attention, as most people thought Jared Gordon won that fight. He picked Paddy Pimblett as the victor. But the other one, when I say you want to start recognizing patterns, Josh Emmett, Calvin Kattar. Happened a little while ago. I think you guys remember this one. This is the fight that got to decide who was going to fight Yair Rodriguez for the interim championship until Volk came back to the weight class. Well, Emmett and Kattar, again, very controversial. A lot of people felt Calvin Kattar won the fight, but enough people felt that Josh Emmett won the fight. So yes, people were calling robbery, and I think that is distracting. We're taking away from what's really happening when we're just going robbery, robbery, robbery. That word gets thrown around way too much, in my opinion. Douglas Crosby scores the fight 48-47 in favor of Calvin Kattar. Sal D'Amato scores it 48-47 in favor of Josh Emmett. Now, when I say look at patterns, remember the last fight I told you guys about. Remember Mike Bell, Sal D'Amato. They scored it opposite of each other, but every round but one was exactly the same. That's cool. That's fair. We can live with it, especially if we go back and watch that round and we go, that is a pretty tight round to score. Douglas Crosby, Sal D'Amato in the Kattar-Emmett fight. Douglas Crosby gives Josh Emmett round 1 and round 3. He gave Calvin Kattar round 2, 4, 5. Sal D'Amato gave Josh Emmett rounds 1, 2, 3. Gave Calvin Kattar rounds 4 and rounds 5. Okay, where is the deciding round? All rounds are exactly the same besides the second round. Now we can clearly identify which round is the deciding round. Which round is that swing round? It's round 2. Whoever wins round 2 should win the fight, in your opinion, as a judge. We are all in agreement here. Chris Lee, who won round 2 for you? Calvin Kattar won 10-9. Cool, that means Calvin Kattar's probably going to be the victor. No, because you gave Josh Emmett round 1, 3, and 4. Again, round 4. You're the only judge. 3 judges. The other 2 that picked different victors both scored round 4 the same. You scored round 4 opposite. You're watching a different fight. You're using different scoring criteria. Whatever's happening needs to be fixed. Why is it Chris Lee? Why is it this pattern, the exact same pattern of the fight we just saw? And more importantly, the 4th round, what is happening in the 4th round? Is Chris Lee falling asleep? Do we got to check on him? Do we have to go over and make sure that he's awake? Maybe he taps out. Maybe he falls asleep at the end of the 3rd. Maybe he forgets that it's a 5-round fight and he's sitting there in the 4th round going, who are these 2 guys? And they're like, hey, they're still fighting. And he has to pull out the scorecards again and go, oh, shoot, I have no idea who won that fight. Wasn't paying attention. I thought it was a 3-rounder. I don't know what's going on, but there's no reason, in my opinion, Kai Kara France should have lost the 4th round in Chris Lee's eyes. The same way that there was no reason Calvin Kattar should have lost the 4th round when he fought Josh Emmett in Chris Lee's eyes. So you have to look at these patterns. You have to pay closer attention on Chris Lee and what he's doing and see if this pattern continues. This weird odd man out. You never want to be the odd man out if you're a judge. Like I said, we can all agree that round 1 between Kai Kara France and Amir was close. Other than that, they scored rounds 2 to 5 exactly the same. For Chris Lee, to have that different, you're the odd man out, and that's a terrible thing to be when you are a judge that is deciding on who gets win bonuses, who gets moved up in the rankings, who gets extra opportunities, who might get a title fight next. Like, Those things matter massively, and I'm not upset about who the victor was. Again, please understand, I am not upset that Amir won. I really don't know. If you tell me Amir won and you say he won 1, 2, and 3, I can't really argue against that. I can tell you why I think Kai Kara won round 1, but it's so close, it's not even worth it to me to explain why I think Kai Kara won. You know what I'm saying? So the result itself is not something that anybody should be upset about. The result itself is not a robbery. But you do have to pay closer attention to Chris Lee. What's going on in the 4th round? Why is he the odd man out on multiple fights now? Why is Chris Lee the odd man out? Hey guys, thanks for watching this clip from the Sicko Sports Podcast. If you want to catch the full episodes, you got to head over to Spotify. Just type in Sicko Sports Podcast, or you can just click the link that's down in the description. Thanks as always. See you next time.